Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 25-26 school year. My name is Priscilla Boyd, and I'm the PBIS coordinator, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about PBIS, although you're going to hear more about it throughout the year in your programs. So this is an overview with the 80s theme. So let's get started. What does PBIS stand for? Positive Behavior Intervention Systems and Support. And each one of these words is an indication of some of the values and principles of PBIS. We have a long and proud history at the co-op with PBIS. Most of our programs have started in 2015, have been implementing for that long. We have been recognized by our regional network, the Midwest PBIS network, as PBIS schools multiple years in a row. This particular year, all six of our programs have been recognized, and we've each one of the programs received two additional badges. So we have 12 total badges for the co-op. All right. In the 80s, we relied on whatever tools we had, and the tools we had at that time included yellow pages. The yellow pages came once a year, and that's when they were updated. They were updated once a year. You could open it up and you could find out someone's address and who else lived with them usually. Um, and you could find these yellow pages in libraries, in stores, and so all of that was public knowledge. The most commonly used telephone numbers and addresses you would put in your Rolodex, which you would have on your desk. And you would be able to keep that updated as it went along. And then, in order to contact people, if your rotary landline phone did not work in your home, or you were not at home, for instance, you could go down the block a bit and go to a phone booth if you had a quarter and if the phone booth was working, and you could contact whoever you wanted on the yellow pages, in the yellow pages. Um, Also in the 80s, we had ways of keeping track of our plans, of our documents, of our calendars, and our lists. We had floppy disks. They came color coded, and you could get 100 at a time, and you would save some of your documents on that floppy disk. We also had Trapper Keeper for our documents, for our paper. And what was great about the Trapper Keeper is that there was this cover on it, and so if you ever dropped it, you wouldn't lose your paper. Um, and it was also waterproof, and it had multiple tabs and multiple folders inside of there, so you could keep all of the different categories of things that you were needing to keep track of in one place. At school, we used something called an overhead projector, which is how we taught lessons. And then we also had these encyclopedia sets. And these encyclopedias, like, I don't think they ever got updated because they are so expensive to update. And, actually, we didn't really notice the need to update it. But speaking of update, I don't think we use that word that much in the 80s. I know that we use it a lot now. Um, every time I use a new app, it needs to be updated, it feels like to me. And it's kind of annoying because it slows you down. You have to learn a new way of doing things. The colors look different. It's it makes you have to change the way you do things, and that's kind of irritating. Well, there's some other things that have changed and that need updating, and that's what we understand about behavior with children, what we understand about development in children, and what we understand about the brain in children. As well as some other things that have been changing are the challenges that the kids are bringing to us, and the circumstances that they are handling on their own or just handling in general. So that has required us to update our practices. And that's how PBIS basically got started, is it recognized that our students weren't the same as they were before, and that there were a lot of differences between them. There was differences in things like their life experiences, their family structures, their abilities, their living conditions, and their home training might be completely different, as well as the brains and how their brains worked. So the challenge was to get all of these different people, whether it's staff or students, to be on the same page. And so one of the foundational principles of PBIS is to get really clear on that page on what it is that everybody should be paying attention to, what is expected, what are the basic rules of this setting, and how is this setting maybe different than other settings, so that all the rules, because the rules don't apply the same way in all places. Um, in addition to that, we had to update what we did when there was problem behavior. Because we noticed that punishments that we were used to using were no longer working, especially for the most vulnerable students. It tended to make things worse, and we never got to the root of the problem that was causing the difficult behavior anyways. So PBIS became a primary prevention model. It focused on proactive strategies, things you did before a problem behavior to keep a problem behavior from happening. Um, the people who came up with PBIS, which is the University of Oregon, looked at the public health model, and the public health model had this triangle with primary prevention and steps before to prevent diseases. And so the primary prevention was something like education, hand washing, exam modeling, hand washing reminders, hand washing visuals, um, food, nutrition, what is nutritious, sleep, things like that, and all to prevent um, disease from getting to the clinical level. So there, if there were risk factors, there would be something that medically you would address too. So they took that medical model and made their own triangle for schools, applying it to schools. And so you see that there's this green level is we call the universal level or the tier one level. And those are the primary prevention strategies that we use and that you'll hear about in your programs. And then we have tier two and tier three, which in the co-op we call advanced tiers. And those are for strategies, interventions, supports that we use for kids that need that extra support, who need some more individualization because of their high risk behaviors. Now, I know this isn't a triangle, but I like the way this describes PBIS because it adds sort of that trauma-informed piece and that nurturing piece and sort of embraces all of the students. So I like to look at this visual and present this visual when we talk about PBIS. All right, so back to the 80s. Every generation has a different way of saying what's cool or what's awesome, has a slang way to say that. So I'm going to use 80s slang for awesome as I describe aspects of PBIS. And I encourage you to try out the slang yourself. Okay, so let's start with PBIS is a mindset. Start here. It is a mindset, which means it's not a curriculum and not a bunch of rules. It is a collection of best practices, which are really good ideas that have worked for other people, and we can see if they work for us. We have lots of tools in which we can, or resources really, which we can access from both national PBIS or our Midwest network. And really, almost every other state has some tools and ideas for us that we can use. The three P's is how we describe the PBIS mindset. And the three P's are being proactive, positive, and purposeful. And those three P's align really wonderfully with our Southwest case core values of being student-centered, results-focused, innovative, supportive, and community. Okay, so now for our first 80s slang for awesome. Um, here we go.
Oh, gnarly!
So gnarly. Gnarly is what we can say about all of that uh, PBIS philosophy. All right, moving on to being student-centered and being proactive. The idea is if you can predict it, you can prevent it. So we plan ahead for what is going to make a kid successful, what's going to make our students be successful. We think about what those are, and then we clarify those, we describe them, and we teach them to students. Like a subject matter, we would use modeling and practice and reinforcement in order to teach what is the behavior that we're looking for in order to have success. Um, the other thing we do is work on having a bridge between home and school. We do that with newsletters and there's a parent website that we use. Um, and then we also have what's called the matrix. And the matrix is where we take the three fundamental rules of our school, which is usually be responsible, be respectful, be safe. At Braun, it's respect yourself, respect others, respect learning. And then we take those three major rules and we break it down by setting and by classroom activity. So what is responsible in a small group or in gym class or in independent work time? What is being safe in those places, in the bus or other locations? Also, you'll see here that there is this if you feel upset category. So isn't it wonderful that we can teach kids a safe, respectful, and responsible way to be upset? Because we know they're human. We're human too. And so why not teach them the way to be upset in a safe way and a respectful way?
Radical!
And it is radical, but it's awesome too. Okay, next, positive. We talk about being positive so that students know they're on the right track. When they're getting reinforcements, then they know that's the way to go. That's the way to get success. It's also trauma informed because creating a positive environment and showing kids that you believe in them and that you value them and that you see them is a way to build trust. And trust is what kids who have experienced trauma need to have in order to have their brains available to learn. So relationship building, being positive creates relationships, and that's what's needed for those kiddos with trauma. And another way to be positive is finding restorative solutions, which require you to listen and to get underneath the problem and address what is the cause of the problem. And then to celebrate, to have a fun time, to have a community. All right, ready for the next word? Because all of that is very,
This stuff is totally tubular, okay?
it's totally tubular. I agree. All right. Third one, being purposeful, is results focused, our core value of results focused. And we use data a lot in order to be purposeful. We do it by recording behavior, and you will get some information in your program about how to do that. So we do that to find trends, we do that to identify needs, we do that to plan some interventions, and we plan interventions for the whole school so that you don't have to be the one that is always intervening or planning something for your classroom. You can be part of the whole school plan. We also measure success with this data, and we hold ourselves accountable to our goals and to our progress.
Bodacious.
Very bodacious. So, what I like about PBIS in the co-op is that it unites us because we're all participating. We get a real we kind of feeling, which I think is just better. It helps us have a common language in case our kids move from a program to another, or when they move from middle school to high school. We also set 2 or 3 initiatives a year, and you'll hear about those. And then we keep reporting on those initiatives and those goals. And we share those with Janine, Lisa, and Tag. Um, and they can therefore report that to the board and get some of our needs met because they hear our challenges and our accomplishments, and they brag about us with our accomplishments. So the other piece that is really important about PBIS is the team part, and that is because um, the team is the ones that can represent most accurately your population and your needs. Um, so your universal team is making plans and innovating, which is one of those other core values, innovating for your program, not for somebody else's program. Now, we share with other people, and if it works for them, they can borrow our ideas, but it is your team that develops it and implements it. So it's people who have boots on the ground or who are very close to the issue that are creating the supports for the kids. And then we do have this community of sharing where we share documents and PowerPoints and lesson plans and visuals and organizational systems. We have monthly meetings in which we do that. And certainly we talk with each other on a regular basis from program to program to do that sharing so that nobody ends up feeling alone, which I hope that's how you experience this year, that you have the support that you need. And that would be,
Cowabunga!
yeah, that would be, I guess, a cowabunga year. Is that how you say it? I, oh dear.
Cowabunga!
Guess we have to hear it again. Because as you see, there is a lot of PBIS that's in it that's for you. So decide to join a team, universal team, advanced tiers team, project team, fun team. Use your talents and your interests because you know what is the most gnarly, radical, tubular, and bodacious thing of all is that you get to make a difference. So I wish you a great year. Keep calm and PBIS on, and thank you very much for your attention.